Hello again. This video is going to be kind of a follow-up to the one I did yesterday, based on something I saw today, was listening to. I kind of want to respond to, and some of the things I've said yesterday in the video, I'll say again in this video. I've already addressed it, but it'll just kind of be in a response fashion to some of the questions, things that were said. By Tom McMurtry. I talked to him on his podcast a couple weeks ago. So it seems like he's approaching this from the standpoint that he's trying to defeat this dispensationalism and Nephilim doctrine. And I don't think that you really need to hold either one of these positions to come to the understanding of the sons of God being angels in Job. I understand that people who talk about that stuff, the Nephilim and dispensationalism, and I am more of a classical dispensationalist, but I don't see dispensationalism like being tied to this. Like, this is not, even if you held the other position that sons of God were men in Job, you could still be a dispensationalist. So I don't really see the connection or the need to constantly refer to that when you're, trying to show the position that the sons of God are men. So it seems like he's coming from the standpoint like he already has this like theological position that he was trying to defeat, rather than just letting the scriptures kind of say what they're saying and just take them at face value, based on what, the information that you're given. So he asked this question about what are they doing and why are they doing whatever that, why are they there? What are they presenting themselves for? What are they doing that for? So again, I mentioned this in the other video, that answering questions like this is irrelevant to determining who they are based on the context of the passage. The context of the passage will dictate how you need to understand verses. So the Bible doesn't give you the information as to why they're there, but we'll kind of reason through the passage. I think we can come to a good understanding of why they're there. But first, let's observe all the examples that he gives about men presenting themselves before the door of the tabernacle. It's an entirely different context, where God is dealing with Israel under the law. And then what he does is he kind of like superimposes that, those instances backwards in time in a totally different context. So you don't need to do that. It's just you get the reading from the chapter that you're in, from the context of the passage. It doesn't really make sense to take something that's not in that context and place it back in time, there in the time of Job, which is way before the tabernacle and dealing with Israel and priests and different tribes presenting themselves for different reasons, different sacrifices, different offerings, before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle. Second, what's very important to understand is when you read all these instances of someone presenting themselves before the Lord, it's because they were told to do that by the Lord. And then you see why, because he talks about, why they're going to do that, for the different offerings and sacrifices and whatnot. But in all the passages that, Tom's referencing there about men presenting themselves, there's not one instance where someone just, on their own whim, their own accord, I'm just going to go present myself before the Lord today. It's what we observe is that one presents themselves before the Lord when the Lord tells them to. And that's the only reason, getting back to the sons of God and Job. That's the only reason we can infer from the presentations before the Lord, is that Satan and the sons of God were told by God to do that. And the only thing that you can gather is that he, the beginning of Job, we get information about who Job is. And I believe that the reason you get that is so you have some context for the conversation that takes place between, God and Satan there, because if he just starts talking about Job, that doesn't mean anything to you. So the reason I think that they're there is God called them there, and, a reasonable thought on that is because he wanted the sons of God to listen to the conversation between him and Satan when he is kind of putting Job out there as a righteous person that Satan can test. Let's see. He keeps saying in the video that people can't get this position just by reading the scripture. And I absolutely think that I will say it's in the spiritual realm based on the information that we're given in the passage. Some people get off topic if you start talking about it's in heaven because they think the devil can't get in heaven, or who knows exactly where the devil is allowed to go, in the spiritual realm with respect to heaven. So I kind of just leave that out. I just say I believe it's in the spiritual realm. It could be in heaven. That could make sense, and we'll see why later. And he comes at it again with this. He says that people need this to be sons of God, to hold this dispensationalism, Nephilim doctrine. You don't need, like I explained already, you don't need this to be the sons of God to be angels. This is just what I think the most normal, straightforward understanding of the passage bears out. Moreover, the angels are identified as sons of God in Job 38:7. If you must stray from this simple understanding that the sons of God are angels here singing when God laid the foundation of the earth, then there's some other agenda that you're trying to establish, or some other position you're trying to defeat. I don't understand why people just not plainly just read the scripture and take it for what it says at face value. If it's not, based on what we know about creation, there are humans, animals, as far as living things go, and the spiritual realm, angels, devils, and, you can talk about the different types, cherubs, seraphims, beasts, and all that stuff. Who knows exactly? There's probably multitudes of many things that are created that God hasn't told us about. But based on the information that you're given, this can't be people. So by process of elimination, you're left with, well, this must be angels. And it's just reasoning that you use. Process of elimination is a perfectly acceptable way to come to an understanding of something in the Bible. So if God is telling you that the sons of God were singing at the foundation of the earth, when the foundation of the earth was laid, there's only one conclusion you can come to. If you want to pretend like, I don't know who this is, who knows, like what it could be, I don't know, then I think you're just trying to, you have some other agenda. You don't want to accept what the Bible is telling you for whatever reason. And, then he says, well, Job couldn't answer these questions. Well, Job wasn't asked what they're doing. Job wasn't asked, who they were. Job was asked, where were you when I did all this stuff? So the question is, where were you? These are not questions. When you look at the whole slew of questions the Lord asked him, these are not questions Job was expected to answer literally. They're rhetorical questions, based on God reasoning with Job to get him to think, about how little he is and how great God is. Where you created Leviathan, the behemoth, and do you understand how this is made? Do you understand how that is made? Where were you when I did this? Where were you when I did that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you say, whatever it might be? They're not literal. He's not looking for Job to give him an answer. Basically, they're rhetorical to get Job to understand or really think about how he was speaking out of turn. When he was saying, "Oh, I'd ask God this, or I'd say this to God if I had my chance," or so that's all that's going on there. Now, God met with men prior to the law. Tom believes that it was in a tabernacle, but he doesn't have any scripture. And this is where I think that he kind of errs in building his doctrine on some things. When he is questioning you about stuff that if you're on an opposing viewpoint of a topic from him, he wants you to give him like literal scriptures. Show me where it says this. Show me where it says that. Show me this. Show me that. But he himself will often build his teaching based on his beliefs or thoughts or reasoning, or this makes sense to me. This, in reality, to an outside observer, it's kind of goofy. Like it doesn't. There's no. You might believe that there men, presented themselves before the Lord prior to the law, or prior to the presentations the instructions that you see God giving to Israel, but you don't have any scriptures. It's just what you believe. So it doesn't really mean anything. It might make sense to you, but it's not scripture. No one, again, going back to this whole thing, no one that I know teaches that 1 Peter 3:18 is talking about Jesus preaching to the Jews in the temple being spiritually in bondage under the law. Like, I never, ever heard that. I've heard a number of different positions on that verse. I understand where people are coming from. But that might make sense to like you in your mind, but it doesn't really make sense to anyone. It has nothing, like it's totally disconnected from the context of what's going on there. It's totally beyond anything close to what it's saying in that passage. The thing that he really can't get around is the group that's being preached to were disobedient in the days of Noah, before the law, before, this is early. This is the time of Noah. So he says the wording's tough there. No, it's not. It's not tough at all. It's very, very straightforward and clear. We may have a disagreement about what spirits means, but everybody that I've listened to teach on this understands that this is some group that was disobedient in the days of Noah. Like they at least get that right. They at least get the time period right. That however this was, I believe that it was evil spirits that were disobedient, that are in hell, that Jesus preached to. Some people will say, oh, these were people in the days of Noah that the Spirit of Christ preached through Noah at that time. I don't agree with that, but I understand where they're coming. But at least they get the time period right. So it's not hard. It's not, there's some things that there are different maybe interpretations on there, but that part, that's really clear. So what he's finding difficult is wresting the normal understanding to mean something it doesn't say. So he's trying to make a spiritual application that's nowhere near what it's saying. Something that I've heard several preachers tell me about understanding the Bible. If you're the only person that's teaching a scripture a certain way, or maybe it's, I'm not the only one, but it's like me and my buddies came up with this. If there's no like historical teaching on this, or you don't have anybody that you don't know that you discovered that it teaches this the same way, there's a good chance that you're wrong and you need to reconsider your position on what you're teaching. Or if it takes you like a half an hour to explain a verse, chances are you're not explaining it right. He keeps mentioning the dispensationalists and Nephilim people, and again, I'll say, to me, the reading of the passages in this manner is not dependent on a person adhering to either one of those positions. While I said, like, while these people may read the sons of God and Job to be angels, it doesn't mean you have to be, in those camps to read it the same way. It seems like what he's doing is what he's accusing other people of doing is what he's doing, trying to explain these passages based on some already established theology, or that you're trying to read them in the way that proves a different theology you don't agree with wrong, instead of just letting it be what it is. Let's see what else. Most of the video, there's not a whole lot. It doesn't, other than the tabernacle stuff and sacrifices and offerings, there's not a whole lot. Most of the video is, talking about what he believes, this or that. He gives a couple of verses about sacrifices and Melchizedek and videos from his trip to Israel. It's really kind of stuff that's irrelevant to what takes place in Job. Also regarding, men meeting with God in front of the tabernacle that he keeps referencing, there is no tabernacle prior to Exodus. You might believe that men met with God at some tabernacle that's unidentified or unmentioned, but there are no instances of men being presenting themselves at some sort of tabernacle prior to Exodus, when he gives out the law to Moses. And I guess it's probably Leviticus, maybe, is where he actually starts, it's written down in scriptures. Now, it's interesting, Hebrews 9:8 calls the tabernacle, that the Israelites built, the first tabernacle. So, I guess we could just explain this away by saying, well, it just means the earthly tabernacle as compared to the heavenly. Okay. Let's not take that scripture literal either. But if we accept what the Bible is teaching us in the scriptures, this is the first tabernacle where men met with God. Now, I'm not saying that God did not meet with men prior to the tabernacle, just wherever. Maybe they built an altar, maybe they did some sacrifices somewhere, but he just didn't meet with them in front of the tabernacle. So if you want to say that folks always presented themselves before the Lord in front of the tabernacle, well, there was a tabernacle in heaven. So it makes perfect sense that Satan and the angels were presenting themselves before God at the tabernacle in heaven. That's about all I have for this video. So I'll see you in the next one.